Hey everybody, so today was about a 7 out of 10 for Jon David. Again, the higher the number, the better. And the word for today is drug conversion, or I guess the term, but drug conversion. So technically what he's doing right now they're not true weans, because what they're doing is they're switching him from the drugs he's on and converting him to another set of drugs. And so, for example, his morphine is getting converted to methadone, and his Versed is getting converted to Ativan, and then eventually his Precedex will get converted to clonidine. And so while he will have some withdrawals with this, they won't be quite as intense as when he's coming off those conversion drugs when we get to step down. But in order to go from the ICU to step down, he has to be on the conversion drugs, or at the very least, he has to be on the conversion drugs for methadone, or for morphine and for Versed. So he has to be on the methadone and the Ativan and not on the morphine or the Versed. And he actually has to be off of those before he can even get off of the ventilator. The Precedex, they want him off of that and on the clonidine before he makes it to step down, but he can come off the ventilator while still taking Precedex. But that is today. So for him, he had a pretty decent day. He increased his feeds by 9 milliliters. And so now he is at over 3/4 of his goal. His goal is 33 milliliters per hour, and he is currently at 27. And so he is not far off. He will probably hit there sometime tomorrow evening, because we did slow down his advancement, and I'll get to that in a second, which is part of why he didn't have a 10 out of 10 day. So they did his wean on his morphine by 9% and on his Versed by about 23%. And so with both of those, they were thinking that he was showing withdrawals. However, he got 7 boluses of morphine today, which if it was withdrawals, that probably would have taken care of it. Because in the past, when he has withdrawals, typically 1 or 2 boluses of morphine would take care of the whole withdrawal. The fact that he had to keep having them means that it's probably more likely feed intolerance. And they can present very similarly in terms of like how they show, because a lot of it is basically irritability. They score him on a WAT score. If y'all have been watching, y'all know what this is. It's the withdrawal assessment tool. And basically the things on there that they look at and assess him on show whether or not he's kind of going through withdrawals. However, the drawback to it is that same assessment tool can essentially show that he is in feed intolerance. And so if he's having feed intolerance, it can look like he's in the middle of withdrawals. For him, he typically doesn't withdraw within 24 hours of a wean, or in this case, a conversion. And so really seems like it would be more in line with him having feed intolerance. The way he's presenting seems to be more like when he's had feed intolerance before. Withdrawals will probably hit him here in the next 24 hours, but doesn't seem to be the case right now. But he also overall has had a pretty decent day. He went up on his PIP by 1 point, and that's pretty much the only increase he's had on his ventilation. Everything else has remained stable. So again, all in all, pretty good day for Jon David. And then Hunter had a fun day with Nana and Grampy, and then he came to the house and hung out with us for a little bit with Mom and Daddy, and then he went and hung out with Gat Gat and ate supper with them, and then he ended the night going back to Mimi's house. So he's had himself a full day, and Mallory and I went back to work today for the first time, into summer, first day as teachers. And that was an experience. Definitely exhaustion, having to kind of move around, going back to work, coming back here, and all the moving parts. But all in all, it's been a pretty good day for all of us. If y'all would pray for these 3 things. 1, pray that Jon David will do well moving forward, continue advancing. Again, we need him to do that with his feeds. We need him to wean and convert his drugs. We need all of that to happen so that way he can continue moving forward and get further out from these last surgeries and get prepared for that next surgery. 2, pray for any family that you know that has lost a loved one, but especially those who have lost children, because that is not an uncommon occurrence on this floor, unfortunately. And honestly, just in our life that we've noticed recently, it's not an uncommon occurrence, unfortunately, just in life. And so please pray for anybody who's lost a loved one, but especially anybody who's lost a child. And then if you would pray for all the families battling congenital heart defects, because again, this is not an easy road for anybody. It is incredibly tough, and it is a lifelong journey, because all of these kids will be monitored for the rest of their lives, because even after surgeries and caths and things of that nature, they are still at higher risk for complications because their heart is not a typical heart. They're not born with typical hearts. They're born with defects that have to be surgically essentially fixed, but then those fixes can complicate over time, sometimes very quickly, as y'all see with Jon David. Some of his have complicated in a short amount of time. However, for most people, it's either never or takes years, and that's kind of the path that we're kind of seeing him hopefully move towards. But we're still a long ways from that. Right now, we just need him to continue progressing on his things that he needs, specifically the drugs and the vents. That way we can extubate and get him into step down, and then the next step would be possibly trying to go home between now and the next surgery, or just gearing up for that next surgery. But that's all a little ways in the future and not in concrete detail yet. So those are just things that are ahead of us on the horizon. Also, forgot to put in here that there's a praise. He passed his ERT last night, so it's the first one he's passed in a while, and he did really well on it. So yay for passing the ERT. But that's all I've got for y'all today. Hope y'all continue to choose hope daily. Y'all have a good night. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow. Hunter, which fish did you catch?
Yeah, a big old booty.
And Jon David, tell everybody bye-bye.